Morning, folks. Oh my God, is it snowing out? So, Duncan asked a question, and this got me to thinking. Pretty abstract, this, but I'm going to talk about the Iridium and the whole Midi thing, and breaking it down a bit, and why I'm so jazzed up about using external gear with a helix. Take the idea of, say, hxedit. Within hxedit, you've got all your blocks set up, and you can go in and tweak individual stuff, assigning it a Midi CC. And what a Midi CC does is this: it turns knobs. In this case, yeah, it can also flick switches. So let's leave the helix side of it out. But basically, what we're doing is we're ripping off hxedit and decomposing it and putting it into something like this, because this is superbly interesting. What the Iridium does is basically 3 different amps, 9 different cabs, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 knobs. Can store favorites, can store 128 presets, and have 300 presets, 3 banks of 128-ish. So it can store a lot of stuff, but what it doesn't have is this hxedit thing. So Peter made an app that takes all the CCs to tweak all these things, so you can break out of the limitations that this has. It's basically, what this does is, if you set it to round, which would be a Fender amp, it will give you physically here 3 different cabs to choose from. Yeah, 3 different IRs of your choice. If you smash that idea and use Midi, you get 9 different cabs of choice. So you could have 1 Fender amp into any 9 cabs you want. You could also tweak these any way you want. And what his app does is it organizes all those tweaks and those switch positions, and it will let you combine it into a preset and save it. So it's an hxedit for this thing. Very powerful stuff. And you can share that with the world, and we can send stuff back and forth and say, hey, check this out. So that's all well and cool. Go a step beyond that. What hxedit also does is snapshots and scenes, so presets within presets. Here, because you can change a cab, think about it, if you tried to do that on a helix, could you hold a Vox, a Fender, and a Marshall all in one preset, and 9 cabs all in one preset? So think of this thing as like the ingredients to make a mega preset. And by sending it commands, batched commands of, okay, give me that amp and that cab and tweak all these things to this level. These are just like little shopping lists, little to-do lists, little honey lists. It's like, go and set up the Iridium like this now. You can batch all these things together. His app does that, or the kind of graphical interfaces that we're doing, which are all inspired off the Tomato-tron thing. We're taking this, which is super useful, and putting it on a screen where you can touch and drag these things up and down, so you can do it from anywhere. Really cool. And that's sort of what the Midi Designer app does that Thomas did. It allows you to tweak these, but you can go kind of well beyond that, because if you look at that as raw ingredients, making a pizza or something like that, you can make any pizza you want based on those 9 cabs, based on those 3 amps, and based on all these level settings. And with the Midi Commander, with the Midi stuff, you can tweak all this stuff live, which is amazing. It would be like having an expression pedal on every single one of these things. But while you're playing, you can't exactly lean down and change the drive, change the bass, change this, change that. Not so easy. With Midi, you can do that. In fact, you can change 2 of these things at once. Yeah, or 3 or 4, or all of them at once. So you can swing between Can't really see that, can you? But you could do this, or this. Hence the power of Midi and why I'm so jazzed up about it. There are caveats all over the place to doing this kind of stuff. One, if you're bombarding your gear with loads and loads of Midi messages like this, it can kind of bog down in some cases. This is pretty robust. Helix is pretty robust. Other things are going to say, you know, what are you doing, man? You could have it switch as well directly between that and that instantly. And by doing that with Midi CC, instead of a program command where you're setting these presets and everything is dropping and rebuilding, doing it one by one or giving it these little commands, it doesn't drop the sound. And that's ace. These are tiny little concepts and things for you, Duncan, hopefully to think about. I don't really know how to break this into a way that makes it describable, other than the fact that we're talking about 3 or 4 subsets of very cool things that could be done. And now the fact that Thomas is doing this, that Tor is doing this, that, you know, we're all kind of coming at this from different angles, looking at different things. It would be cool to get some kind of terminology, but also expand on what you can do with external gear. It doesn't matter that we're talking about an amp, because this applies to a delay, this applies to a reverb, this applies to the floor, not the floor, to the HX stomp, which isn't meant to do all this kind of stuff. Like, it's meant to be controlled by hxedit. You preset all the things you want, and the way that does it is really cool, but it doesn't have touch. It's not designed for touch. So Midi Designer or OnSong combined with expression pedals and things like this, these are all design choices that I think if someone's going to jump into this little rabbit hole, the concepts are super simple, but the design factor here, we're getting into what Igor does, what Eric does, what whoever in Strymon does or doesn't do. These are things to be aware of before you get into that. Like, where are the limits? And that's what I'm pushing so hard with all my experiments to do. It's how can you take that and really go beyond? So think about it. External gear is awesome for the sense, or HX stomp used as this. If you think of the stomp as an H9 or as a Iridium or as a whatever, it does everything. How you control it is all one aspect. How you manage your presets is all totally a different aspect. And the idea there of like set lists, this is like the, you know, point A, this is point B. Set list management or preset management would be awesome, because you can arrange all of your 128 presets into different genres. You could say, these are all my rock presets, these are my things. And the cool bit about this MIDI control, this idea of remote controls, is that you can change the order of all that without actually touching the order here. So you're building layers upon layers of stuff. If you went to do an acoustic show, you could pick out from all over the place the presets that you wanted that would work with acoustics, or you could, you know, go totally wild and do a fusion thing where you're cranking a Marshall amp with an acoustic and throwing all kinds of strange sounds at it. It's really the big idea is to detach everything, take all of the super cool methods of working that you'll find in a Helix, smash that and recombine it in a different way. And what you'll find is mind-blowingly cool stuff where the controls are simple, but again, you will run into physical limits, and it will be a good idea to know what those are, to discuss those in the groups, or, like, you know, come up with a dream idea and throw that into the group, and then you can discuss that with the other guys, and it's like, what's the best way to do it? Because half the time, you know, especially in the helix, all this stuff has already been accounted for, all this stuff has already been done, and you can kind of find cool ways to tweak it and arrive at the result that you want, doing it the least work possible. And that's really what the Midi Mad Scientist Club is about. Midi's kind of simple, basic stuff. You're getting into this stuff, I encourage you to do so. Think about that as a concept. Deconstruct the assets within the box and rearrange them how you want. Freaking cool, man.